And how's it going, everyone? This is Ashton coming at you with another Red Modeling Paint Studio PaintCast. And what we're going to be working on tonight a little bit is wrapping up some of the final details here on Eric's, turn that fan off for a second, on Eric's Cryx. So excited to be here and looking forward to getting some stuff done. So Eric, what we got here is we've got your death jack, okay, and what we're going to wrap up tonight is we're going to spray for the OSL right here inside the chest cavity. We're going to add a wash to your metals, which are all finished now. Add a little bit of OSL around the smokestacks just right here, and then maybe a little bit inside there. And then he is going to be wrapped up and he'll be done at that point. I'm not going to worry about doing the basing with you on camera. After talking with you and stuff, it sounds like that's something you're pretty comfortable doing. So we'll do that tonight. Then the next thing we're going to do is, this is the base for your asphyxius. A couple weeks ago, you remember I did the cork basing on it. Got them all primed, so we're going to start working some of the necrotite green into there for the OSL effects on those soles. Remember, with OSL, where the light is the brightest is where it's going to be the whitest, so we're going to expect these skull faces to be pretty white, going back to a lighter necrotite green. And then on Denegra here, she's like 99% done. What we're going to do is just add the OSL effect on the pike that she has here, and then she'll be ready to go. And then I'll be doing a little bit of basing around here on the bottom, but again, I'm not going to worry about doing that on camera with you at this time. As far as the other pieces go, we've got the sole that goes in the middle of Death Jack's chest that we're going to paint tonight. And then also the other two smokestacks. We're going to do some OSL right through here where the venting is there. And then I figured also on the head, let me tighten up the camera angle here. There we go. And I figure on the head what we'll do is the base here of the horns, we're going to leave that the gold. We'll do this top part here, silver, okay. We'll leave the cowling of the face right here, gold. And then right here on the helmet, right here in this area, we'll do purple right there on both sides. And I'll just hand paint that. There's no point in doing that with an airbrush or anything at this point. So, but the gold that you see here, this is airbrushed scale 75 Negro gold. So you can see it airbrushes really nicely as well. So let me widen my camera angle back out here, and it's about where I want it right there. And what we'll start with is adding the OSL effects on all these different models. Again, just as a recap, the color I use is Cryx Wicked Color Detail White, Super Detail White, or no, just Detail White, I'm sorry. And that is the color that I recommend for using for the base on the OSLs. Also, actually, I've got it right here too. The skulls, we're going to paint these tonight too. They're going to be white with the silver spikes right there, and I'm going to send this to you with these off. Also with the on Death Jack, on his little fist here, these little spikes here, I'm not attaching those either because I'm afraid they might break off in shipping. So they'll be painted, they'll be ready to go. All you'll need to do when you get it is just glue it into place, and I think that's the safest way to get that to you. So again, the Cryx Detail White doesn't need a lot of thinning. About 4 drops of paint to about 1 drop of thinner. It's already fairly thin coming out of the bottle. Okay. And I'm going to turn my fan back on here, so we'll get noisy for just a second. We'll start with Denegra. Tighten up on her a little bit there. Okay. The back end of it here, back side of it here. Make sure I'm on camera for you. Alright. So there's the basis for the OSL effect right there. Okay. That's on her. On Death Jack here, you can see the hole right there that I have drilled where the soul is going to go. So we're going to concentrate around that pretty good there. And I'm going to add a little bit on the outside here of the rib cage there. Some on this side. Alright, let's see how that looks. Oh, and then around the vents here at the top, we're just going to add a little bit. And then inside here, okay, and then onto these vents here. Now you're going to notice I'm keeping the light fairly central in the middle of that vent, and that's just to emphasize that that's where the concentration of light is coming from. Do the same thing on this one. Okay. Quick and easy OSL. Alright, so let me rinse this out real fast. And we'll get over to the Necrotite green color. Almost done here. And a little bit of rinse water now. Okay. Let me grab my next color that I'm going to work with here. P3 Necrotite green. And you're going to want to thin this color pretty good, Eric. Typically P3, you know, I'll thin about 1 to 1, 1 to 3, somewhere in that area. So, you know, you definitely want to go on the thinner side, 1 to 3, 1 to 4, you know, paint to thinner. And the reason why is because you want this paint to go on fairly transparent. You don't want it to be overly opaque, because you don't want to obscure the white. You know, you're trying to create the illusion of a glowing effect. So we'll start with Denagra here. Again, we're going to work on keeping it as white as possible in the center, because that's where the most concentration of light is going to be. And I'm going to go back over that with some white, a white brush when all is said and done, just to emphasize that just a little bit more. All right, so that's OSL there on Denagra. On Death Jack here, I'm going to try and keep that concentration of white the most in the middle there. Okay, so that's how that one's looking. Now on the smokestacks here, we're going to focus the green mostly on the edges away from the white. Okay. Move on to the next one here. All right, you see how that's looking. On Death Jack, we'll get the smoke. Do the smokestacks now. And I'll go back in with a little bit of white and touch that up in the center just so it has a little more pop to it. And then same thing on the front shields here. Sorry, my hand's right in the way on that camera angle. Sorry about that. Alright, you see how that looks? Now we get to the base here. So, what I was saying earlier, focus the green most heavily on the bottom. And I may actually go over that a little bit with some Iosin green too, once we're done here, just to add a little more depth to that green. Okay, you see how that looks? Alright. And then also, now we've got the soles here. So I'm going to focus kind of from this back angle here with the green. Sorry about that. Still haven't figured out this screensaver yet. So that should look pretty good when it comes out. Okay. And then on the backpack here, I didn't bother putting the white on because the area is so small. So I'm just going to go in and put some green right here inside of each of these little wells on the vents. And then I will go back with a white brush and add the intensity of the OSL. Okay, it's looking alright. I'm going to clean this brush out now. So the biggest thing to remember, Eric, when you're doing this on your own, when you get all these back, is take it slow with the airbrush. Don't be in a rush to try and get in there real tight, real fast. Practice some of those skills that we talked about early on. With the different techniques and stuff, and just really focus on building your technique up, because in the long run, that's what's going to benefit you the most, is your technique. Okay, so really try and focus on that as much as you can. Okay, airbrush is just about clean. You can turn that off, set that aside. Airbrush down here. Okay. Now we can move on to getting some actual brush work done here on these guys. Okay. Now, based on previous conversations, Asphyxius, we did him a little bit more of a dirty metal kind of look. And you had indicated that on Deathjack, though, you wanted more of a clean metal look. So I had based all the silver here in P3 Quicksilver, I think it's called. Yep, Quicksilver. And whereas on Asphyxius, we had done the darker pig iron. So the lighter Quicksilver is going to give a brighter look. The other thing too was on Asphyxius, we washed him with Army Secret Weapon Miniatures Armor Wash, which kind of gives that dark brown dirty look. With this guy here, big guy here, we're actually going to go with P3 Armor Wash, which is a cooler color, more akin to a purple or a blue, and is not going to make Deathjack look quite as dirty. So that's what we're going to be using here is the P3 Armor Wash. Okay, and we'll first start by putting that on all of the silver areas first. And then I'm thinking we will end up using the Secret Weapon Miniature Wash, Armor Wash on the gold parts as we highlight them, before we highlight them back up. So just apply your wash liberally on this. Try not to let it pull too much though. And then in instances like this where you do end up going off the metallics, just make sure and wipe it off with a clean, moist brush. You should be fine. Now, of course, a lot of this detail right here is going to be covered up by the cowling plate, or the top plate that goes on him, but we still want to make sure and get this detail all covered, because there will be parts of it that will be showing. Down here where the OSL is, just try and soften that edge up a little bit. These large rivets here. Just let that wash flow into those spots. Okay. Down in here, I'm not going to worry about much. I will get these hip joints here. I don't want to worry about too much in there because I don't want to mess up the lighting effect. I'll get this knee right here. Backside has a lot of detail here to pick up with the wash. So we'll get all this done. Really try to get that wash worked into the cracks, the crevices, the deeper parts of the armor. That's what's going to give the nice detailed look. I mean, in fact, you can even see it right there, the difference on the two sides, left versus right. How much difference a well-placed wash makes. And I'm not thinning this out. This is just straight out of the bottle onto my wet palette. Working all the way down the spine here. Tell you, Eric, this guy has been a project. He is a big honkin' model to paint. No bueno. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's been a lot of fun, actually. I enjoy painting. He just, this guy's got a lot of detail on him. This side here now, and then right leg in there. so that's the main torso there, looking pretty good. We'll most likely just give this a quick dry brush, a very light, quick dry brush when we're done, since there's so much texture here. It's the fastest way to get through it, and you do a dry brush right, and you don't overwork it, and it looks very fine. It's a quite acceptable method, actually. Saw a model today on the PP forums where the guy had dry brushed it, and they'd worked the dry brush so much that you could actually see old pieces of the brush, lint from the brush, like still clung to the model. It was caked on so bad. That's not how you want to dry brush. You want to work very slowly and thinly with and thin with the paint. Adding just a little bit at a time. But we'll get to that here in a second. I'm just getting some of these last details here. Let's get this inner arm out the way. Okay, and now the inner details on this hand. Okay. Okay, and get on the back side here of this hand, work this chain. May need to load your brush up just a little bit more across these chains, just to get a little more of the wash dropping down into the deeper parts there, to really accentuate that chain. Okay, so that hand is looking pretty good. This other hand now, we'll start with the chain on the top here. Now if you were wanting a dirty death jack, these chains are actually pretty fun to add a lot of rust and maybe even a little bit of gore and weathering too. They weather up real nice. Okay. And it's dry enough here in Idaho right now that this wash is drying super fast, so I think we're actually going to get to, I'll actually be able to do some of the dry brushing here tonight on this guy, so I'll show that to you right away. Okay. I'll get the inside here, go across the chain. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and set him right there for the moment. Correction from earlier, it wasn't Quicksilver. P3 Quicksilver wasn't the base. P3 Cold Steel was the base. So, apologies on that. So I'm going to put a little bit of Cold Steel on my wet palette while Death Jack is drying. And we're going to go ahead and start basing out the metal on the horns here. Getting the base coat done on the metal of the horns. And again, we're leaving the base here, right here, the gold color, but these other parts right there, we're going to do that in the silver. Create a nice two-tone metal look on his head here, which I think will look nice. There's one layer there. I'll dry and get back to the second layer. Let's get the other layer on right here. Okay. So here's some of the initial there. Grab these little rivets on the side of his head there. Those coated in silver. Now we'll paint the helmet, the purple color, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a Vallejo Hex Lichen, Vallejo Game Color Hex Lichen. The reason being is it's such a small area. I don't want to go all the way down to the darkest color that we made for your the darkest color formula that we made with the combination of the sanguine and the exile, or the sanguine and the exile blue and the third color, I forget what it was, because I want to make sure that when people look at this helmet, they're seeing a purple helmet. So we're going to start a little lighter, and I'll take it down, as needed. And we're going to leave that trim piece right there in the middle. We're going to leave that gold. And on the back here, it does have a little bit of it there. Grab that. Sorry, off camera there for a second. Alright, so there's the Deathjack head with the first little bit of purple worked into it. And then we'll take the highlight color, Warlord, Vallejo Game Color Warlord Purple. We'll thin this down just a touch so it's not completely opaque. See about how thin I've got it there. Okay. And we're just going to kind of edge highlight this a little bit right there. Same on this side. And then take a little bit of that base color and just mix it with that little bit of that highlight color. Give you kind of an in-between shade. Okay, and then just kind of glaze that edge between the highlight and the base color. Just kind of pull it all the way down across the surface, and that'll help just create a slightly softer transition between the two colors. And then of course, you know, this edge right here, we'll clean that up. And then we'll probably need to put a little bit of white in there. So let me get myself get me some white here. Vallejo Moral White, or excuse me, P3 Moral White is what I'm using. And don't worry about getting the white onto the metals at this point, because you can come back and touch the metal up very easily. Okay. And then take yourself a little bit of Necrotite green. Put a drop of that on your wet palette. Thin it out a bit so that it's more of a glaze or a wash, and then completely opaque. This is what we got here. You can see, very thin, hardly even leaving any color behind. And then what you'll do now is wash this over the white. Like so. And then we're going to let that dry for a minute. I'll come back and touch that up. And we got also the soles here coming out of his chest. And what we want to have happen is these kind of the creases there, the inner parts, if you will. Those are where the color is the most intense. So I'm just mixing a touch of white with a touch of Necrotite green. And see what we got there. I'm going to thin that down just a little bit more. And then wanting to paint this mostly into, as much as possible, the recesses of this twisted sole, because this is the inner glowing part of the model. Kind of like a reverse highlighting almost. You know, you want the darker spot higher up because that's where it's cooled off, and you want the warmer spot deeper in because that's where it's hot, that's where it's intense. I'm going to take some necrotite green now, undiluted, and just try and highlight some of these edges with it, or darken rather some of these edges with it. Okay. Set that aside now to dry. And then, like on the on these pieces here, what we can do is take some of the same mixture of the mix of white and necrotite, and to make it look like the light is coming from inside this stack, you can actually paint these vent holes white. And this might be a little too bright, so let me tone that down just a little bit with some more necrotite green. That's a little better. See the change in the color there? The darker color just looks a touch better. And this is a little monotonous. Just kind of hitting the same spots like this over and over again, but pays off in the end. Creates a nice, acceptable OSL, quick OSL type effect. Okay. You see how that looks? We'll do the other. Other vent, just mix up a little more paint here. Okay. See how that one looks? Let's come back to our head here real quick. And we could probably add a little more green into there. A little more white. Just going to work this on a little bit here. Okay. And then on the Death Jack vents, add a little bit here. Get in here on these. Okay. This look pretty good. And then inside here, these top ones, I'm just going to focus this white right here in the deepest part. And then I'm going to add, just because I can, because it's a little bit of a bigger area, just a little more white in the center of those. Alright. And then Denegra, her pike, get a little bit of a white treatment here, right in the center there. Same thing on this side here. Okay. Okay. And then the pack, Asphyxius's pack. And add a little bit of just white treatment into this. Okay, pretty good there. All right, last thing we're kind of looking at here is kind of the base. Let's work with some of this necrotite here and see if we can get some of these edges here to pop a bit. Just kind of lightly dragging the edge of the brush over these high points. Might need to go back in here with some white and work those a little bit more. I think pretty good. Once I'm done painting the dirt on the base, I'm going to darken these areas here on these spirits up just a little bit more with a little bit of a darker green, like an Iosin green maybe, and see how that looks. So I want to check something out here real quick, Eric. I've got these little, the little souls coming out of Death Jack's chest here. I want to see if we can get this in and see how this looks. Drop of paint there. Okay, stand by 1 second, Eric. The edge here is not cooperating with me. Clear that out a little bit. Alright, let's try this again. It's not cooperating with me, Eric, so we may not see this one tonight. At least I may have to play with that a little bit more. And I chipped some of the paint getting him in there, but you can kind of see how that's going to look. And I'll clean that up, play around with it a little bit more, and see if we can get him sitting in there right for you. So we set him aside for a second. Okay. Set that there. Well, I think, Eric, that's going to about wrap it up with your project here. The only other last details that I need to worry about are just assembling these last couple pieces together, and then doing that basing, which we already kind of talked about a little bit. So it's been a pleasure working with you. I'm going to have these done probably by tomorrow and off into the mail to you hopefully by the middle of next week. And that way you can get these home and enjoy them yourself. But it's been a pleasure, like I say, been a pleasure working with you, and I hope this has gone well for you, and that you're getting out of it what you wanted. So in the meantime, everyone else, thanks for joining in and watching, and we'll catch you guys on the next broadcast. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good night. So long.